You're listening to the Holistic Nootropics Podcast, your home for holistic, evidence-based cognitive enhancement strategies. And now your host, Eric Levi.
Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Holistic Nootropics Podcast, where we discuss using nootropics, biohacking, and nutrition to help you boost your cognition. My name is Eric. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner, and we have an awesome episode for you today with two of the smartest fellas around when it comes to water and biology. We got Victor and Robert from Lightwater. Now, before we jump into the episode, just want to give a quick shout out. If you are new to the podcast, you're watching this on YouTube, please take a second and subscribe and make sure you hit that little bell icon so you can be notified every single time we release an episode. If you enjoy the episode, give it a big thumbs up. And as we go along, if you think of any questions or comments, leave those down in the comment section below. If you are listening to the audio version on this on your favorite podcast player, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave this podcast a 5-star review. Now, I want to bring in my two guests here, Robert and Victor. Before I do, I want to actually read you all about who they are. So the first one I want to talk about is Robert Slovak, who is a degreed mechanical and aeronautical and astronautical engineer, best known for co-founding water factory systems in the early 1970s. He's one of the early developers of reverse osmosis technologies. And for the past 9 years, Robert's focus has been on bringing a new nutraceutical breakthrough called molecular hydrogen to the medical profession and health-minded consumers. He's also a founding investor in Quicksilver Scientific Corporation, which uses groundbreaking nano-encapsulated liposomal nutraceuticals, and has now turned his attention to deuterium depleted water with his company, Lightwater Scientific. And then, of course, we have Victor Sagalovsky, who is the co-founder of Lightwater Scientific, who started out in his early 20s as an innovator in plant-based culinary art, having co-founded in 1995 the first organic gourmet raw food restaurant in North America called Raw. He's the author of many articles and guides in the field of wellness, biohacking, emerging medicine, technology, mysticism, and esoteric wisdom. He also holds a number of firsts as a 3D cinematographer, having been a pioneer in digital stereoscopy in the mid-2000s in Hollywood. He is the author of Gold, Catalyst of Radiant Health, a book about the history and science of the medical benefits of gold, and is adept in gold alchemy and the making of worms. Fellas, welcome to the Holistic Nootropics Podcast.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Absolutely. You guys' bios are so extensive. I mean, I cut those down just for time purposes, but they go on, and it's only because there's just so many accolades, so many things you guys have accomplished over the years, which makes it so exciting that you two came together to form this company, Lightwater. So I'd love to know really the background of how you guys got together and what was the spark, what was the impetus for starting a company like Lightwater?
Well, I mean, Victor and I are from the same area and know the same people for decades, and our paths continually crossed. And we became very familiar with each other's scientific capabilities. And Victor knows many of the esoteric sciences. I'm a little more focused in the conventional sciences, and it makes a great team. And at one point, we just said, hey, are you paying attention to what's going on with deuterium? And my view is, Victor, it looks like deuterium should be considered as a contaminant in water. And that just kind of buzzed with both of us. And it was kind of a perfect scenario because the people who led the development and all the state of the art of this science is Russia. And Victor was born in Russia. Victor speaks Russian. So it was like made in heaven in a way. And
yeah, we got lucky in that sense. That's
yes, yeah, very lucky.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Deuterium, it's one of these things that I've heard it a lot in the last maybe 2 years, and it just kind of seemed to come out of nowhere. And the more it gets talked about, the more I'm really appreciating just how deep this issue goes. But I don't think the common person even knows where to begin. You know, we all say, hey, make sure you drink enough water. You know, the nutrition school I went to, they said, make sure you're client drinks, half their body weight in water. And we think like, okay, well, if I want to get healthy, I got to drink water. But, when you start diving into the chemistry of this stuff, and you start picking apart the periodic table and you're looking at these different organic compounds, it really gets messy down there. And so maybe you could explain a little bit about what deuterium is and, why it's such a problem, especially in water.
Well, I mean, deuterium, let's just say, was created at the first moments of traditional creation, let's say the Big Bang. So deuterium showed up early in the creation of the elements of the periodic table, okay? The 92 natural ones. And the first one and the lightest one happens to be hydrogen. But most of your audience doesn't realize there's more than one form of hydrogen. There's actually 3 kinds of hydrogen, and they differ in their mass or their weight. And those 3 are called as a group isotopes. Probably many people have heard, maybe from the hospital, we use isotopes, etc. So they're isotopes, and the regular hydrogen that we think of, that's just a simple proton and an electron, scientists refer to as protium. And then somewhere in that Big Bang, a neutron got added to that atom. That's doubled its mass, and that's called deuterium. And everybody should hang on to that thought. There's a form of hydrogen that's twice the mass of the regular hydrogen we normally think of. And then there's another one that is even heavier, called tritium, and we won't even refer to it because it's so rare and so esoteric that it's not worth bringing up into this conversation. So, water, this deuterium hydrogen acted just like regular hydrogen, meaning it would combine with oxygen and form water molecules also. So there's several kinds of water molecules actually in your glass of water. And those water molecules have those 3 kinds of water molecules might be referred to as H2O. That's one, with the simple hydrogen. And then if we just earmark the letter D to deuterium, then there would be a water molecule that's HDO, okay? A simple hydrogen plus a heavy hydrogen plus oxygen. And then there's one that has both hydrogens as heavy, D2O. So those 3 molecules are in every glass of water, every body of water, every ocean, every sea, every iceberg on planet Earth.
Okay.
And no one paid attention to it, partly because deuterium was only discovered in 1931. And the fascination that this heavy form of hydrogen was necessary to make nuclear reactions in a reactor and make the atomic bomb, it stole all the attention. Because after 1931, people wanted to make nuclear reactors and they wanted to make atomic bombs. And no one really thought, what are the other, say, biological consequences of deuterium? And then the world, went through its wars and using this deuterium. But now we realize, and the Russians realize, that deuterium is toxic, especially at the levels that it can reach in the human body. So I think I'll give you a guideline. Water, a liter of water contains about 6 drops of water molecules that have deuterium in them. Okay, 6 drops. Now that doesn't sound like a lot. It's just that those 6 drops have profound mechanisms and chemistry within the body. So if we take a sample of your body water, we will find out that pretty much you have 6 drops of deuterium in all of your body water. And now we realize it can wreak havoc in virtually every biological system, every biological method or mechanism in your body. And that has changed the perspective of health science. And I see it, I often say, to give people kind of a reference, we are moving from free radicals and antioxidants as the big deal of chronic disease. We're moving into mitochondria and metabolism as even the basis of aging. Okay? So that's why it's got all the interest. And the Russians were the first to do the biological investigation in the 50s, late 50s and 60s, and carried it through to present day. And most of the studies are Russian, and our partner who produces the water for Light Water Systems is Russian. And so Victor and I have learned an incredible amount about the physiology, the biology, etc., of deuterium and what it means and what benefits there are to reducing it in your body.
Wow. So, Victor, when the Russians discovered deuterium, were they necessarily looking for it, or did they just find it? Was there something that tipped them off that maybe there is something else going on with water that would bring, like the motivation to discover something like this? Like, how did that even happen to begin with?
Sure. So in the 50s, there were some young scientists, gerontologists in a university in Siberia, and they were trying to figure out, they were gerontologists studies aging, right? So they were looking at all the different ethnic groups and populations in the Soviet republics. As you know, Russia at that time, the Soviet Union, was vast. I mean, it still is. It's like, 12, 13 time zones. So they're looking at all the populations in the Soviet republics, and they hone in on a couple of them, and they can't make sense of a couple of things. One, these are people that essentially are like Eskimos. They live in a place where it's very cold, not much sunlight. Their food choices are far from a Mediterranean diet, and these people are living 4 times more than anybody else in the republics. So they're trying to figure out why. And that was, you need a question to get an answer. And that was the original question. So it took a few years, and they honed in on their water. And then because deuterium science was popular at the time, because it had only been discovered, less than 2 decades before, they started looking at this. So they measured the ocean, which is 155.76. Okay. That's the deuterium level of the ocean. Then they measured regular drinking water that everybody drinks in cities and so forth. And they measured these people and what they're drinking. And they saw that they had a deviation of 16%. So they started doing some studies with plants and animals to see, is there some kind of longevity benefit, some vitality benefit? And sure enough, they saw that there was. So they published their first findings in 61. And then their first findings were published in English in 66. So that's where it comes from. It comes from some people trying to understand why a couple populations of people, ethnic groups, were living way longer than anybody else. Not only living longer, but having babies, later in life, and having just an overall greater vitality. Then that's what that was their answer. And then they had a breakthrough.
And that's that 16%. Other scientists might not have even recognized it. If you found that some people got 16% more or less vitamin D, you wouldn't really make a big deal of it. But that's how important deuterium is. Just 16% varied the entire life and aging of a particular population who got that water from
something to add to that. Originally they got funding to drill down these ice cores, because these people, they figured, okay, they're drinking their glacial meltwater, and that glacial meltwater is special. So we're going to drill down, and we're going to get that meltwater, and we're going to test it. And they did that. And then they ran out of money. They're like, oh, what do we do now? They tested the snow water. And it was exactly the same. So they realized, okay, they started to understand a little bit more about the hydrological cycle, but they realized these people just living in that area are getting this water that has 16% less deuterium, and not only their lifetime, but multi-generationally. This was a really profound breakthrough. And our partner that created this in Russia, in the sense of creating a commercial facility to actually produce this water, because this was very expensive, it hadn't been done. It's just the engineering and the science are very difficult. He read this study as a teenager, and he never took it off his shelf. He said, this is something, and same thing with Robert and I. We stumbled upon this in the early 2000s. Said, this is really something here. It's being overlooked, but we didn't overlook it, and some other people didn't overlook it and took a keen interest in it. And this is why it's taken over 60 years for this to get to a point where it's a product that you can take and anywhere in the world reduce your deuterium levels, not just live in these areas where you naturally have 15 to 20% reduction.
So the water that we import from Russia at this time, and we are building a facility here in the United States, instead of having 6 drops per liter, it has 0.4 drops per liter. Okay? So it's dramatically reduced in deuterium, and you don't have to receive the benefits, you don't have to take it in that, let's say, pure form, and you can take it in even 3 drops and get great benefits from reducing the deuterium just that small amount.
So are you saying then that drinking deuterium depleted water, even in just a small amount, can that somehow offset the current deuterium that you have in your body at the moment?
Not in a small amount. You would have to replace, let's say, a fourth to half of your water to begin to, and I'll just use this common term, flush out the deuterium that's been in your body since you were born.
Sure.
Okay? So that process begins, and you can do it over a long term and slowly eat away at it, or you can take it in a deuterium in a very the water in a very low deuterium form and make it a more rapid experience. We prefer the slow and reliable method of reducing your deuterium. We favor, or the science shows that reducing it from 150 or 6 drops to perhaps 3 or 4 drops is a magic number in which great benefits are experienced.
Is that per glass or per gallon of water when you're talking about the drops, or is that like throughout the day?
I think Robert's just illustrating how many drops of HDO are in water. But if I could paint the picture a different way, there's a mechanism known as hydrogen exchange. Let's say your body is mostly water, right? It's maybe 99% molecular weight, but what happens is the body water that you have, let's say it's 150 ppm. So whatever you consume that day, if it's lower, then through the mechanism of hydrogen exchange, your body will dump some of that deuterium, okay? So every day, by drinking water that has lower deuterium amount than the water in your body, you will reduce deuterium slightly in your body, about half a ppm to 1 ppm per day. So you do this over time to drop down to in the 120 range. That's what we believe. That's what we believe. That's the first reduction where you really start seeing some long-term, some serious magical benefits. And that correlates to what these people were experiencing, or still are, that live in these areas that have a natural low deuterium in their water, or lower.
And it almost sounds like, because, Robert, you were mentioning how this is a benefit because the deuterium actually, for lack of a better word, infects your cells, affects your mitochondria. So if you don't have this deuterium, this dose of deuterium coming in, you're almost allowing your cell to do more of the things that the cell does, especially at the mitochondrial level. Your mitochondria starts working better. You start getting more energy. You start naturally feeling better. You're healing better.
You get a net energy benefit.
Gotcha.
And there's nothing really else that'll give you a net energy benefit in this way, because you're actually not it's a different concept in that you're not putting anything in your body. It's about taking something out.
Right.
When you take something out, it's like taking out a limiter on your car, right? You just allow it to operate faster because you've taken those limiters away.
And the damage that deuterium, meaning hydrogen that is heavy because it has an extra neutron, it's a very well known now, it's not been known very long, how it actually damages the mitochondria itself, damages it to where the mitochondria cannot survive. So the deuterium is like a wrecking ball to mitochondria.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is so important, and because we talk about this stuff on this podcast all the time, which is, how do we naturally boost, especially, mental acuity, mental strength, how do we reduce brain fog, how do we just wake up in the morning and feel like, we're just shot out of a cannon and we're getting after it and we're focused and we're feeling good. It's because the mitochondria, in a lot of things that toxify the cells, like for instance, glyphosate or fried food or sugar or any of these things, really attack the cell at the mitochondria level. So anything
Correct.
we can do to start boosting the mitochondria, and a lot of times, and as we talk about this a lot on this podcast too, which is addition by subtraction. So, the reason I started this podcast was because the problem, in my opinion, in the nootropic space and the biohacking space is everybody wants to do more. Everybody wants to take more supplements. Everybody wants to use more wearables. Everybody wants more red light. Everybody wants more, you name it, right?
Yes.
A lot of times the solution is, well, let's get rid of the things that are causing the problems in the first place. So, if you get a concussion, okay, like let's say you play football, you get a concussion, they're going to take you out of the game and not let you play anymore. Why? Because if they put you back in the game, you're going to make the concussion worse, right? We have to let you sit out of the game for a little bit so your brain can heal, and you might have to miss a couple weeks. You can't play. If you break your arm, you're not going to go back and do the thing that broke your arm more and more and more. You're going to put it in a cast. You're going to keep your arm as much away from that thing that broke it in the first place. And in terms of this deuterium, by simply just drinking water, by simply just doing the thing that everyone's telling you, and just instinctually you're supposed to do to survive, you're actually getting a small amount of toxin every day. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just kind of the world we live in. But what you guys are introducing is this form of water that is mostly free from this toxin so that your cell can start doing the thing it needs to do to keep you alive, to keep you feeling well. It truly sounds amazing.
And because of the water, go ahead.
I was going to say, deuterium acts like a bait and switch. So your body's expecting protium. When it gets deuterium, that's the problem. So yeah, we have what essentially this is a new standard in water quality and water purification, because now that we know this is a contaminant, this is something that can be removed from water. It just happens to be very difficult. But if it is removed from water, it allows your own body's deuterium levels to drop, and that's the benefit.
And it's not just we've focused on the mitochondria because it's so dramatically influenced by deuterium, but because, as Victor said earlier, 98% of the body is water molecules, you can imagine, since the percentage of this is deuterium, it is influencing every single aspect, the DNA, every organelle in the body, the cell wall. I mean, there isn't anything that is not influenced by the deuterium presence in the body.
Wow. Is there a part of the body that it has more of an affinity to, like maybe the liver or the kidney? Does it, does it cross the blood-brain barrier, for instance? Are there parts of the body, I don't know if they've ever done an autopsy and looked for, or done blood draws or interstitial fluid or plasma draws and found this stuff concentrated in a different part of the body more than another?
There's a new technique in MRI imaging where they use deuterium as a tracer. So it's so you could tune an MRI to actually see where the deuterium is concentrated in the body. Typically concentrates in whatever neoplastic tissue you have, like tumors. They found that to be the case.
Oh, wow.
You know, otherwise it's pretty well dispersed, but just there's not enough data yet on that new MRI technology to really show. But the tumor thing, that was significant. That was a big finding that was published.
In other words, cancer cells benefit from the presence of deuterium in their metabolic cycle.
Because it's a slow energy building block. It slows you down. Deuterium, when you remove deuterium or lessen deuterium, it speeds everything up, optimizes everything. When you add deuterium, it slows things down. It's simple explanation, but that in biology, it's called the kinetic isotope effect. So if you have a carbon deuterium bond and you have a carbon hydrogen bond, most things, food, everything is a carbon hydrogen bond. So if you have a carbon deuterium bond, that disassociates 9 times slower than the carbon hydrogen bond. You can imagine.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. So with water too, I mean, there are also other issues, like I'm just now hearing about deuterium for the first time, but, we've known about like fluoride in water or, lack of minerals or too much minerals or lead or all these different things. Do these elements that you also find in water, especially now, like when we're talking about like city water, do you find higher concentrations of deuterium in, like more like man-made water sources?
No, it's pretty ubiquitously at the 150 part per million for natural waters. However, that hydrologic cycle that produced the water for those Siberians, that was the result of a geographic presence of a glacier, etc., cooling and thawing cycles, because the temperature of water with deuterium in it freezes at a higher level. That ends up being a mechanism in which it's naturally separated in certain environments, like mountainous glaciers. So if you have this glacial meltwater, and that's why so many people have had impressive longevity, who live in the Himalayas and so on, that part is largely due to the diminished deuterium.
Okay. Wow.
So meteorological processes can reduce it. And the deuterium is slightly higher at the equator, lower at poles. Fruits and sugars have plants tend to concentrate deuterium into their sugars. Okay. So there's a great variety of deuterium, and it should be taken into consideration in your deuterium depletion protocol. That how much fruit am I eating? Okay, for instance, a mango is very high in deuterium, and animal fats are typically the lowest in deuterium. And now you're thinking keto right off the bat, right?
I'm thinking ribeye, baby.
Okay, exactly.
Yeah.
So the lowest thing in deuterium that you might put in your mouth is lard.
Wow. So this is mind blowing, because, this goes so much further than just like bottled water or tap. Like we're talking food now.
Way.
So this is like,
we're
go ahead.
About your mitochondria, and the mitochondria is what makes the mitochondria produces all the energy that we use, the ATP. But what powers them? Protein, hydrogen. Well, what does all food break down to? Hydrogen. So this is, and in that food and in that water, you'll find a little bit of deuterium. So we have these mechanisms in our cells to actually try to limit the amount of deuterium that goes into the mitochondria. But eventually those mechanisms break down and fail. And this is why a person that's 80 doesn't have the same kind of energy that he does at 15, and no matter how much he tries, he can't, because that cell no longer has the same amount of mitochondria factories. They're energy producing factories. If you're 15 years old, you might have 100,000 in that cell. If you're 50 years down the line, because of your lifestyle or just natural mechanism of aging, you might have less than 1,000 of those factories in that same cell.
So it largely determines our lifespan. Just this thing called deuterium that people are just finding out about. It really is very impactful on the so-called 100-year adult, 100-year human lifespan.
Are there any bodily mechanisms anywhere in our anatomy that you could empower to better flush deuterium out of you? Is there like a way that, okay, I can't get deuterium depleted water, it's just a part of my life, but I can strengthen my liver, or I can strengthen my kidneys, or I can strengthen my mitochondria, whatever it is. How would somebody go about doing that?
Eat less and eat more fats. Primarily, with you, even fasting, for example, if you're fasting and you for every kilo, 2.2 pounds of fat that you burn, you produce an equal amount, 1 liter of deuterium depleted water. About 60 to 70% deuterium depleted from normal water. So when you eat fats, and when you eat less, well, when you have less calories, you're introducing less deuterium. When you have higher fat foods, you have less deuterium, because nature's strategy, as Robert said, is it concentrates the deuterium in the carbohydrates and depletes the fats. So these are some simple strategies. You could also increase the health of your mitochondria, and the Krebs cycle in nature that's the TCA cycle, Krebs cycle, St. George cycle, whatever you want to call it. In biology, that is the very complex cycle that has a series of gates that try to limit deuterium from getting into what is known as the electron transport chain in the mitochondria. So you could strengthen the mitochondria, like you said, red light. That's a fantastic way to induce mitogenesis. Exercise, a lot of oxygen, but primarily you limit the deuterium by limiting the deuterium calories that come into your body.
Wow. Is there a specific fat that's better than others? Like, because I know when you start getting down to the fat molecule and you're talking about saturated versus monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, is there one that, does that matter at all?
Well, polyunsaturated, those are all great if they haven't gone rancid. Okay. So all fats are beneficial, if in their structure, how they came. So if they have a potential for having something come in there like a polyunsaturated fat, make it rancid, then no, it's not good. That makes saturated fat very good, very safe. Which one's the best? It's hard to say, but let's say if you consume animal products, you'd want to stay away from the ones that are grain finished, because that's very high in omega-6. So the more balanced, the better when it comes to animal fats. You want the best balance of the omega-3, 6, and 9, and the others. So there's
and grass-fed takes
all fats are good. All
meaning.
fats are good. Some are better than others.
Right. And what were you saying there, Robert?
I was saying that grass-fed takes on a new meaning when you consider deuterium, for several reasons. One is that the grass-fed environment, which is naturally supported by rainwater, is typically a little lower in deuterium, and everything adds up.
Yeah. Well, the question that I have, like, to that point then is, what about like this polluted rain aspect, like this idea that, like, for instance, sometimes it rains, especially when I lived in New York, it would rain and I'd just be walking around and I'd be like, I don't know if it's a good idea to walk in these puddles. I don't know if it's good to let this rain hit my bare skin. Is there anything? You're right. Is there anything like that going on? I'm curious.
Just traditional air pollution, which is polyaromatic hydrocarbons and nitrogen compounds, etc., that are the traditional pollutants. Yeah, they're not good to have at your body, but it's not related to the deuterium. It's its own thing. And rainwater is also cleansing. So if rain was going to go on for 4 hours, you would want to avoid the early morning rain.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I don't even know why. It's just like a crazy thing I'm thinking about. Like, it rains in Puerto Rico and I'm like walking around and like, I don't know if I should be walking in flip-flops right now. But kind of going off of this, to think about something like alkaline water. I hear so much about alkaline water. You see it in the store. And, it sounds great. It sounds like, oh my God, this is like, this is the water of God, right? And it's so clean and pure. And then you have all these other people saying that it's a scam and, there's no benefit to alkaline water versus non-alkaline water. So I'm curious where in this whole thing, something like alkaline water or even structured water I've heard, which I don't even know if there's a difference between that and deuterium depleted water.
Well, the alkaline water I have tried to expose for at least 8 or 10 years as having little physiological significance. And it was not a scam in the sense that someone was trying to perpetrate this. It was really a misunderstanding of chemistry that started the ball rolling, and the ball didn't stop, okay? And that was really done by a very well-meaning engineer, a Korean, Song Hwang, who didn't understand the difference between alkaline, the pH of water, and alkalinity, its ability to buffer acids. And that we won't go into the detail. So what I end up teaching a class of doctors is that the pH of water has no significance in human physiology, okay, or animal physiology or plant physiology. The fact is the body will almost instantly alter the pH of water, and it would lose anything that pH could bring. So when you drink water with high alkalinity, not high pH, okay, it could have high pH. I tell them pH is irrelevant. Doesn't matter whether it's alkaline, that's okay. It doesn't matter whether it's neutral, that's okay. And it doesn't matter even if the water has an acid pH, because your body is going to dominate that in just a matter of seconds. Mm-hmm. But what is important is the buffers in that water, which we call alkalinity. And that's why people might put a half a teaspoon of baking soda in the water. That adds real alkalinity. That's why Europeans drink their serious mineral water, okay? That is not popular in the United States because it's about the real alkalinity. So the alkaline thing, it's just a fad. And you're right, it got a lot of people rich. And the other thing you were bringing up was structured water.
Structured water, right.
Structured water is just such a big field, okay? And that there's hundreds or thousands of variations of how water can structure, okay? And reorganize and take on information, etc. So it's been used as just a selling feature. Oh, my dog food is made with structured water, okay? That has commercial consumer appeal, but it is meaningless. So you really have to get into it. Is it structured by a 0-point energy vortex? Is it coherent water? I just listened. Huh? Yeah, by the mind. I mean, there's a lot there to structured water. It has a big future. One of the newest ones is quantum coherent water that's being developed by the Dutch. And this is something to really look out for. So, but just to say, I'm drinking structured water is kind of meaningless.
Okay.
Your body, you should know structures the water that comes in. You should know.
Oh, yes.
You should know that none of the water inside your cells is water that you drank. You made it. It was synthesized in your body. So that's different than the water that you drink, which is bulk water.
And photonic energy, early morning sun exposure is very structuring through the skin to the water that is passing through your circulatory system.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing, tidbit I picked up. I was talking with Stephanie Seneff, who talks a lot about glyphosate, and now she's actually getting more into deuterium depleted water and deuterium.
Correct.
And she was mentioning the structuring effect of light and red light specifically.
Absolutely.
which is an interesting thing because, we're talking, I think it was you, Victor, who mentioned, the red light helping the mitochondria. So, you can see this really powerful effect from light at the cellular level, especially when it comes to the water in your body and in your cells specifically.
Especially 660 nanometer spectrum, which is red light.
Yeah.
Which is the light you get at sunrise, sunset, more so than midday.
Wow. This is so interesting. And it's funny too, because, a lot of people have so many questions about water, especially like water filters,
Oh my God.
You
got the expert here on water filters.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about water filters because this is
the greatest body of misinformation, hype, and BS in the entire consumer world. Okay.
Okay, please lay it on me because this is a question I see popping up a lot. So where are we going wrong with this whole thing?
I'm not sure we're going wrong. We're just misinformed and confused because people are trying to sell something, and that's always been a problem in our society. But if somebody is a true biohacker and absolutely wants to avoid every possible contaminant that, let's just start with municipal water, okay? Because when you start taking like water from in Thailand, it gets very complicated. Maybe you have viruses there. But let's say municipal water in North America. If you want to, there's probably, in all the municipal waters, probably about 150 contaminants have been identified. Now, that doesn't mean each one has 150. Some have maybe 10, some have maybe 40, etc. But there's, of all the waters, we can find 150 undesirable contaminants. Now, if you say my standard is to remove all or a high percentage of those contaminants that long range can affect my health, because very few contaminants in modern municipal water in North America can have an acute influence on you. I mean, you're not going to like fall over, okay? It might take months to years. But if you want those out of your life, there's only two processes that can possibly do all of them. One is distillation plus activated carbon. That combination, that's golden. It's not always user-friendly, and it may be costly in electricity, et cetera, but it achieves the job. The other is reverse osmosis plus activated carbon. Those two stand alone as being able to remove virtually all of the contaminants, from pharmaceuticals to radionuclides, you name it. If you're not so persnickety and demanding, and you want your water to taste better and have many of the key contaminants out of your water, like trihalomethane, disinfection byproducts, volatile organic chemicals, pesticides, Roundup, okay? We were just glyphosate. Then you can use simply a very high level of activated carbon, which is half of those other processes I gave you. And it's very effective, but it can't affect things like heavy metals, radionuclides, etc. It just doesn't have any interaction with them. Now, with that said, there is so much lying going on in the world of products that use those technologies. So many caveats need to be explored by the consumer. And we could go on 3 shows and not finish, but it's rife. It's a minefield of misinformation. And that's where I do podcasts and try to answer people's questions that are very detailed.
Is there one, and I'm not asking you to name a specific water filter unless you want to, but I'm not asking you to do that. But more like, is there a feature or something that somebody could see on a water filter package or marketing or website that tips you off that it's not good?
I'm very glad you actually asked that. One, perhaps the most fail-safe that you don't have to think a lot about its form is a let's say a high quality distiller plus reverse osmosis. A distiller plus activated carbon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's such a simple, natural process. It's hard to beat it. Now, when you distill or when you use RO, you do remove everything. You remove the bad stuff and you remove any potential good stuff that might include minerals and trace elements.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to restore those minerals and trace elements. That is very important. I happen to be a big fan for the last 17 years of ketone marine plasma. Okay. I think you're aware of that. It's my favorite additive for minerals and trace elements, but it's not the only one either. Now, when it comes to reverse osmosis, you have to be much more discriminating. There's many more ways to go wrong with reverse osmosis and activated carbon than with the distiller plus activated carbon. So I'm against, even though I'm one of the creators of the entire product category in the early 70s, reverse osmosis that is, we'll call it an under-sink installation. Many people, it's very popular over the last 50 years. It goes under your sink and it has a storage tank. Well, we have found out a long time ago that storage tank can become an incubator for bacteria that can be very hazardous to human microbiome. Okay? Because it just becomes a perfect location for the growth of bacteria. There's reasons that a modern RO design actually encourages it without them trying, okay? One is they make much more water than the consumer uses. So the water never gets exchanged in this tank. It's in there for weeks, months, even years, okay? Because you never get rid of all of it. People don't know to drain their tank. So when I first started talking to autism groups, and they wanted me to tell the mothers of children with autism, what water should my child get? I would say, listen, I'm going to give you the bad news, and I want you to take this home with you because it's that important. Do not give your child water from an under-sink RO system, okay? Because it's going to interfere with his microbiome, and you'll never be able to really get him completely better from that perspective. And it was like shocking. And I delivered that probably for 5 years. And then I found a system that is my favorite current system. It happens to be called AquaTrue, okay? And it is a countertop 4-stage reverse osmosis system. It's very simple. It's very economical. And you know, everything can be better, but that is my go-to for the average consumer right now. It's reverse osmosis plus activated carbon.
And it's a countertop, so it doesn't need to be hooked up to your system. You don't
have an installer. It's simple, but some people who have a very expensive house and so on, maybe not want something on their counter. Okay, so that's one of its downfalls, but it's very popular. It's been around for over 5 years. And it's perhaps one of the most popular RO system, responsible filter systems that's tested by all of the best laboratories that test products. Okay,
gotcha.
And that laboratory testing is something that is played with by the industry of point-of-use water purification and abused so greatly. So there's some people lie about the results of their testing. People pay off laboratories. And I'm kind of the best at being a watchdog as I can, but it's not a pretty thing to watch.
I bet. Have you ever seen these water filter straws?
Of course.
Okay, so can you tell me about those? Because I remember seeing this, I think it was 2 years ago on Prime Day, Amazon Prime Day.
Well, are we talking about zero water or the straw? Where you can drink out of a river?
Yes, that one.
Okay, so when it comes to, remember I mentioned the acute versus the chronic contaminant, okay? Something that you take one sip of water and you could be sick. That's an acute experience with water, and it could only be produced by a microorganism, okay? Some kind of pathogen, whether it's an amoeba or et cetera, a cryptosporidium. So these are the things that when someone sells a straw, it's really addressing just that. Those straws are like a crude form of reverse osmosis membrane that doesn't remove dissolved substance. But it can remove any particulate substance like a microorganism or a virus. So if you were challenged, in the wilderness and there's a stream and you're thirsty, a straw is a great, it's a great way to protect yourself. But if you took that straw home and said, oh, okay, I'm now back on my municipal water where there's no pathogens basically in the water that get you sick quickly, and you're just dealing with chemicals, pharmaceuticals, trihalomethanes, it's not going to do anything. Okay.
How about
then there's the zero water. The zero water.
Sure.
I don't know. It's kind of a gimmick also that I don't subscribe to.
What about the Berkey? Because that's big in the wellness community.
Ouch. That minefield that I spoke of, that's difficult to walk through for a consumer. Well, the Berkey there's something actually going on with Berkey. And it started about a year ago with somebody asking me to do a report on the Berkey. And to be honest with you, I've always, Berkey is a, it's like buying a BMW. It has a great reputation. People like it, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the things it has is one of the most spectacular, according to Berkey, one of the most spectacular contaminant reduction reports that ever existed. And this report is being challenged. Because when you look at the Berkey, which is just a carbon filter, a very good one, and it has some additions and so on, but it's not in the category of a distiller plus activated carbon or reverse osmosis plus activated carbon. It's much more downgraded to the activated carbon technology. When you look at it, the performance outperforms virtually everything. And I looked at that for the first time a year ago, and I'm going, there's no way. And then I contacted all of the known laboratories that do independent testing of people's products. And I go, hey guys, and I've known all of these people for 30 years. Hey guys, did you test the Berkey? Because I'm thinking Berkey, with its popularity, it certainly would have gone to one of the popular testing laboratories. They go, no, we're wondering too why we never tested it. So I suspect that Berkey, my own personal conclusion is, and this story has not fully been told yet, is playing with numbers. And I understand how they played with the numbers. So if you're on municipal water and you want all of those contaminants known that I mentioned, maybe there's 150 possible ones and maybe you have 30. If you really want them all out, you really have to stick to my rule: distillation plus activated carbon or reverse osmosis plus activated carbon.
Wow. Man,
people can write me at at Robert Slovak, at ROBT Slovak at waterandwellness.com, and ask me some. I prefer the deeper, more challenging questions. Okay.
Sure.
Don't send me something that's the most popular thing. It's just this. What do I do for my water? And people don't even tell me like where they are or what state they live in.
Right.
Give me something with details.
Yeah. You could probably sell a water filter buying guide ebook or something, you know?
Absolutely. It's been a dream of mine, and the landscape keeps changing, and I'm doing podcasts. I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah. I'm just trying to help you get the name out there, you know?
No, thank you.
We're trying to help you blow up, Robert. Well, this has been great, fellas. This podcast could probably go on for a couple hours, but I don't want to sign off before you guys tell me about Lightwater. Tell our viewers and listeners all about Lightwater,
Victor?
what you guys are doing,
Go for it.
and how they could get that in their homes.
Lightwater, you can find everything out about it by going to the website, drinklightwater.com. And Lightwater is spelled Litewater. So there's drinklightwater.com. We also offer a testing service for testing your deuterium levels, whether it's your body's deuterium levels or your water. That's deuteriumtest.com, which you can also get to from our website. But poke around our website, get educated on it before you decide to do this, is what I tell everybody. So read through the FAQs, read the history of it, understand more of it, so you have a better knowledge of what you're doing, you know, with this lifestyle modification and some of the benefits that you're going to experience. So yeah, it's worthwhile for anybody to try it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I got to say, I spent about an hour on that site, and first of all, it's a beautiful website, and there is a lot of really great information. You know, as far as sites that are selling products, you guys really do go above and beyond to make sure that anybody buying this deuterium depleted water really knows and understands like what they're getting into.
Thank
you know, why this is great. You're not selling something just to make a quick buck, and you know it's trash. There's a lot of research behind this, and I highly recommend, you know, just even if you're not going to buy the product, but you just want to learn more about deuterium depleted water in a way that's that's digestible. You know, not all of us can go to PubMed and start reading about this stuff. It gets way too complex, especially if you don't have a chemistry background. But you guys really lay it out in a way that is very easy to understand. And I'm telling you, if my dumb brain can get it, anybody's brain can get it. So thank you guys for the service you're providing.
Yeah, you're a great podcaster, by the way.
I appreciate that. Well, if somebody wanted to follow you guys like individually, are you on Twitter, Instagram, anywhere you can send a viewer to learn more about you guys?
Mine would be Water and Wellness and Drink Light Water. Basically are my contacts, but I'm so overloaded with requests, demands, and inquiries that I tried to like stick away from the Twitters and Instagrams because I can't handle it.
Yeah, same here. I don't do. I have a personal account, but it's
and I think I'd be censored probably within the first 7 minutes.
I'm telling you, man, you start blowing the lid on some of these water filters. Big water's coming after you.
Exactly.
Big water's coming.
Big water's coming. Big deuterium, that's coming for you. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. Viewers and listeners, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. This is one of my faves. If you want to learn more about these guys, head on over to holisticnootropics.com/podcast. We'll have all the show notes to this podcast and every other podcast that we've published. If you are looking for the best quality supplements and nootropics on the market today, head on over to holisticnootropics.com and download a copy of my free supplement buying guide. Otherwise, we will catch you on the next episode. Thanks so much for watching.
Thanks for attending. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. For more brain-boosting info, in-depth articles, and show notes, check out holisticnootropics.com.